So, anyway, really good. And then, no, we changed it. Yeah. We insert you want to So we're going all the way to the bottom.
Whatever I'm free. I'm totally lost what you said. I don't know this, whatever.
No, for installation.
Yeah.
They're gonna get called up. Because there's only 2 organizations. Usually don't. It's only 4.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And especially yeah. So, generate the people song now. For sure, community.
What's your name? 今のこんな白いとこ押しよったら消えるの?
And it's there, that means you have to. So you have to. Something is a word.
Good morning, everyone. For those joining us on Zoom, we are streaming live to YouTube, so if you do not wish your picture to be seen, please stop your video. And please join us in Basho this morning for our opening meditation, followed by Nembutsu. Namu Amida Butsu.
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 Okay, good morning again. My name is Dharma, and along with Charles Bagshaw and Alex Sakata, we will be sharing and providing the music for today's service. Eitaikyo is a Japanese word short for Eitaikyo. Eitai means perpetual. Dokyo means reading the sutras. Thus, this service represents our collective hope that our temple will perpetually thrive and the Buddha Dharma will be transmitted here for future generations. We are able to listen to the Dharma here today because of the efforts of so many from multiple generations who have worked so hard to plan, build, and support our temple and Sangha. We dedicate this service to all those who live and died as Buddhists in due respect for their contribution to the growth of our local Sangha. We also pay respects to our late bishops of the BCA. The level of dedication of our bishops is astounding. Their dedication, to spreading the Dharma in America consumes every corner of their lives. If you ever have a chance to meet a retired bishop or our current bishop, please take a moment to thank them for all they contribute to the perpetuation of Dodo Shinto Buddhism in America. Since part of Eitaikyo is translated as reading the sutras, I have a question for you. Have you ever, who here has ever played a wind instrument or sang in a choir? I see some hands. Then you know the importance of sitting up straight, using your diaphragm muscle to project your music. Today, I hope we can sit up straight, use that diaphragm muscle, and show our reverends our appreciation for today by reciting and singing fully and from the heart. We will begin with the recitation of Samba Jo found in your program, followed by the aspiration or Fyobakumon, led by Reverend Candace Shibata.
In the presence of Amida Buddha, the embodiments of great wisdom and compassion, we at the Buddhist Church of Stockton have gathered to observe the Eitaikyo Perpetual Memorial Service in memory of our deceased loved ones and temple members. Encountering the impermanence of life We are made to see self-illusion and the contrasting light of truth that sustains us. We also dedicate this gathering in memory of the late bishops of the Buddhist Churches of America. Because of their tireless efforts and dedication in sharing the Buddha Dharma, we place our palms together in deep gratitude. Please join me in Daksha. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo.
Good morning. Okay, could you all please stand for Gatha when we see the golden sun in service book page 227 and also included in the program and followed by the three treasures and empties.
Three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of a blessed one. Now we hear it. If we do not deliver ourselves in the present life, no hope is there that we shall be freed from suffering and sorrow in the ocean of birth and death. Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in Buddha. May we all together absorb into ourselves the principle of your way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves your supreme will. I take refuge in Dharma. May we all together be submerged in the depth of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in Sangha. May we all together become units in true accord in your life of harmony, in a spirit of universal brotherhood, free from the bondage of selfishness. Even through ages of myriads of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo.
Please join us for chanting of the Sutra Jusei, service book, page 94, and it's also included in the program.
Show.
And now we will have Oshoko or incense offering by our representatives. For the Dharma School, Derek Yu. Dharma School teachers, Kathy Fujimori. And I don't believe we have anybody from Sangha Club here today. For the Young Buddhist Association, Elise Fuji. For the Young Adult Buddhist Association, Ben Pokan. For the Youth Athletic Organization, Dr. John Fuji. For the Adult Buddhist Association, Dolores Matsumura. For Tomono Kai, Mike Shibata. For Stockton, Bukyo Taiko, Susan Bruni. For Stockton Kendo Dojo, George Fuji. For the Stockton Buddhist Women's Association, Sachi and Okida. For Cortez Coakai, Kimber Severson. And for the Buddhist Church of Stockton, Candy Hayashi. Thank you, everyone. So for our Dharma School message, we are very fortunate to have Reverend Henry Adams of the San Mateo Buddhist Church. So students, how many of you guys know where San Mateo is? Okay, how many of you been to the San Francisco airport? Going out of San Francisco? Okay, you drove right by the exit to go to Reverend's church on San Mateo. So how many of you like to ride a bike? Nobody likes to ride a bike. Okay, did you know you have something in common with Reverend Adams? He is a lifelong bicycling enthusiast. Anyone need their bike repaired? Okay, well, perhaps you can get Reverend Adams' phone number after service, as he spends much of his free time fixing bikes for himself and his family. So students, please provide your undivided attention to our guest speaker, live and in person, Reverend Henry Adams.
Namanda, 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 no. Please join me in Gasho. I take refuge in Buddha. May we all together absorb into ourselves the principle of your way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves your supreme will. Namanda. 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 Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Wonderful to be here in person in Stockton. I think this is the largest Sangha gathering I've had the opportunity to experience in about 3 years. We're like here at the Buddhist Church of Stockton, we're doing hybrid services in San Mateo and San Francisco. And so we have folks joining on Zoom and in person, but it's really wonderful to be here with all of you today. So today we're here to observe the Eitaikyo service. And as was introduced during the service, the Eitaikyo is a service when we remember those loved ones who worked hard and dedicated themselves to this temple. And we do so with a wish that this can continue to be a place where we can hear the Buddha's teachings, where we have the Buddha's teachings to rely on. So I think of Eitaikyo as a time when we think about what is it that we can really rely on? What is it that we can trust in our lives? So what is it that you feel like you can trust and you can rely on in your life? Do you have anything that you feel like you can rely on? Anything or anyone in your life? Yeah, Sensei?
My dad and my sister.
Okay, great. Sensei's dad and her sister Tiffany are people she can rely on, right? How about your friends? Anybody feel like you can rely on your friends? Yeah, maybe family and friends. Lots of people out there we can rely on. Sometimes there might be some things or some people who maybe aren't so reliable. Can you think of any people like that who aren't so reliable? Yeah, I see lots of more smiles and people nodding their heads on this topic. You know, my kids, I have 3 sons, and at the moment, the big thing in our house is Pokemon. Does anybody here know about Pokemon cards? Yeah, we got some Pokemon cards. Did you bring your cards with you today? Oh, no, I might have some in the car I can trade with you. See, whenever my sons go anywhere, they always make sure they have their Pokemon binders in case they meet somebody who also has Pokemon cards, because they want to be able, they like to trade. But you know, they come home and they often report to me about the trades that take place on the playground at school. And I've learned that there are some kids at school who are good to trade with, and other kids who they won't trade with. Can you guess why they won't trade with some of those kids? And you do what's that? They have bad cards, right? Maybe they have inauthentic or fake cards that they might try to pass off for a real card, right? So we always have to go through life and we have to understand, what is it that we can rely on? Who are the people we can trust, right? And so for us, as we live our lives, at different times in our lives, there are different people we can trust and rely on. But there is one thing that we can rely on throughout our lives. One thing that's always there, present for us, and that's the Buddha and the Buddha's teachings. And so this Eitaikyo service is a service where we think about what it means to rely on the Buddha's teachings, the support that we get from those teachings, and how people have worked very hard so that we can have that support in our lives. So there's a big holiday coming up at the end of this month. Does anybody know what that big holiday is? Yeah, do you know? Halloween is coming up, right? So in the spirit of Halloween, I want to tell a little bit of a spooky story, if that's okay. Is that okay? You okay? I get a thumbs up for spooky stories? Okay. That was my warning here for people, a little bit spooky. Okay, but this is a Buddhist story. It's actually a story about Denyo Shonin. Does anyone know where Denyo Shonin is here in the Hondo? Can anyone point to Denyo? Yes? Can you point to Denyo? Yes, that's right. Right over here. Denyo Shonin's portrait hangs just to the left of the Buddha image. So Denyo Shonin, he moved around a lot in his life, but at one point in his life, he was living in a place called Yoshizaki. Yoshizaki is along the Sea of Japan, kind of in the central part of Japan, on the coast, on the Sea of Japan, the ocean there. And while he was there, many people would go and listen to his Dharma talks. And there was one young couple, a woman by the name of Okio, and her husband. Every evening, after they finished their work, they were farmers, so they worked out in the farm fields. And after they finished their work, they would walk down the path to the temple where Denyo Shonin lived, and they would go to hear Denyo Shonin's teachings. Now, the two of them did not live alone. They lived with the husband's mother. So Okio's mother-in-law lived with them. And while Okio and her husband loved to go to hear the Dharma teachings of Denyo Shonin, the mother-in-law was not so happy about this because she did not trust Denyo Shonin. She would say things like, "Where are you going? Because we're going out to hear a Dharma talk. Would you like to come with?" She would say, No, don't go listen to that charlatan. He's just trying to steal your money. He says, "Oh, no, he only teaches us the meaning of Namo Amidabu. Naman dabu, my foot. Naman dabu, more like Namai dabu." Right? He's just trying to get some money from people. No, that's not Denyo Shonin. Denyo Shonin teaches us how to have peace of mind by trusting the Buddha's teachings. Mother-in-law would say, "If you want to have peace of mind, you better go to bed early, stay home, go to bed early, wake up, work hard in the field so you can earn more money." That's the path to peace of mind. So every day they would go out, hear the teachings, they would come back, and she would get madder and madder every time they left her home alone. They would always say, "Come along, why don't you come along?" No, I'm going to stay right here. I'm not going to get tricked by that trickster. And so she would stay home. And on one occasion, Okio's husband had to go travel far from the village to go and get some farm supplies. So he was out traveling far from the village, selling some crops, getting some supplies, and he was going to return late that evening. So he told his wife and his mother, I'm gonna be home late tonight, but you should go ahead and go to hear Daniel Shonin's teachings, as we always do. The daughter-in-law said, okay, that sounds good. And so after they finished the work in the fields, they returned home. The daughter-in-law said, okay, I'm gonna go to Daniel's. Why don't you come with? Why don't you come along? And the mother-in-law said, no, you go by yourself if you think it's such a good idea, but I think you better just stay here. He says, oh no, I'll be okay. And so she went off down the path. Now the mother-in-law thought, oh, why could she leave me alone like this? Why does she? It's really improper for her to be going off, walking down the path by herself. And so the mother-in-law, she was sitting there, seething and getting madder and madder. And she had an idea. She says, I know how I can get her to stop going out there. And so she dug through her drawers and she found an old, beat up, ragged kimono, this old kimono she'd had when her son was first born. She put that on and then she headed off down a shortcut that she knew since she lived there her whole life. She knew the shortcuts through the woods, and she ran through the woods, and some sticks and some leaves got stuck onto her kimono, and she went and she found a dark spot just by the corner of the path, and then she crouched down. And just as Okio came by, wow! Jumped out, a scary demon mask on, and she said, you better run home right now or I'm gonna gobble you up. And Okio remained perfectly calm, and she said, go ahead and try. You can try to eat me. You can eat up my body, but those sharp teeth of yours, they can't bite through my diamond-like heart of entrusting in the Buddha. It had a heart that trusted the Buddha's teaching so much, she had no worries. And she just carried on down the path, completely unperturbed. Now the mother-in-law, oh well, better just go home. And she went to take the mask off, but she pulled and she tugged and she tugged and she pulled, and the mask would not come off her face. And so she sat there, pulling and tugging, trying to get the mask off. Now later that evening, Okio returned home from listening to Daniel Shonin's teachings, and when she got home, she found her husband was there. And when she got home, her husband said, hey, where's my mom? Oh, she was here. I said, oh no, I thought that you'd finally convinced her to go and hear Daniel's Dharma talk. She says, no, she was here when I left. She was kind of mad, but she was here when I left. Oh, but I did run into a scary demon that threatened to eat me along the path. Says, oh no, maybe the demon got mom. And so they went out looking for her. And they hunted for her. And he said, I think maybe she got worried about you and she went out looking for you. You better try to find her. Maybe she's lost. And so as they were looking and hunting, and they came to the place where the demon had jumped out, and they saw the mother-in-law. And the father immediately recognized, like, that's mom's old kimono she used to wear when I was little. He says, Mom, oh, it looks like she's wrestling with a tanuki raccoon dog. Oh no, we better get her away from that tanuki. And they went over and she had the mask stuck on her face. Whoa, why are you wearing grandpa's old no mask? He says, well, I get so lonely when you guys go out, and I just wanted to stop Okio from leaving me here. So I was foolish and I tried to scare her, but can't get this mask off my face now. And so the son and the daughter-in-law, they got together, they pulled and they tugged and they pulled and they tugged, and they said, we can't get it off. We better go to find the wisest teacher that we know. Maybe he has an idea. So they brought her. Where do you think they went? Daniel. They brought her to Daniel's place. And when they walked in, you think if somebody walked in like this, how do you think Daniel responded? Perfectly calm. He said, welcome, come on in. it's an interesting mask you have on. And so she told the story. She told the story of how she had been so jealous, so angry. She says, you know, I thought that people would just come here and you would just trick them out of their money and try to get them to give you all your money. He said, no, I ask nothing of those who come here. I only share what I have received. For me, the joy is in sharing the Buddha's teaching, sharing the peace of mind, the diamond-like heart that I receive from entrusting. It gives me courage to face the challenges of my life. I live here in Yoshizaki because I had to run away from places I lived before because people were so angered by my teachings, by the teachings I taught that gave peace and courage to the common people, that they would even burn down the temples where I lived. So I wound up here, and still I'm happy to share what I've received, the teachings of the Buddha. And so I welcome you to come and hear these teachings as well, just as you are. You know, we all do foolish things, we all make mistakes in our lives, but the Buddha's teachings embrace us just as I are, just as we are. And when Okio's mother-in-law heard this teaching, she turned to Okio and she said, you know, this is truly a precious teaching, and I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry for trying to frighten you, and I thank you for all the patience you've shown with me over these years. And when she shared these words of gratitude and humility, the demon mask slid right off her face. So this is the wisdom of Renyo Shoni, the ability to help us to strip off those demon masks that sometimes we carry around with us, right? Do you ever, put on a demon mask yourself? You get mad at somebody or frustrated and angry, right? And so we all carry these feelings around, and sometimes we think that, the thing that I can rely on is my own idea of what is right. We hold on to it. We hold on to our ideas of what is correct. And we think that somebody else's idea can't be right because I've got the right idea. But the Buddha's teachings, that's the one thing we can rely upon. They help us to see ourselves as we truly are. They help us to recognize when maybe we're being a little bit foolish or we've made a mistake, but they also show us the path forward to live with wisdom and kindness for others. So this teaching that we can truly rely upon, this teaching of the Nembutsu, people hear this teaching and they receive great courage. You think about Okio. Okio, she heard this teaching of the Nembutsu, and it gave her the courage to seek her own path to enlightenment. Even though people she was close to, people around her, her own mother-in-law, discouraged her, she had the courage to continue on the right path. Her husband heard this teaching of the Nembutsu, and he had the courage to support his wife and to say, you should continue to seek these teachings. Even if I'm not here with you, you need to seek your own path to enlightenment. Okio's mother-in-law, when she heard this Nembutsu teaching, it gave her the courage to recognize her own foolishness, to apologize for the mistakes she'd made, and to have a change of heart and to seek the way herself. And then Yoshoni himself, this teaching gave him the courage to share the joy he had received with others, even though he was often threatened and often misunderstood and even chased and attacked. He continued to share the wise teachings. And so we gather here for this Eitaikyo service to remember the people who created this temple, this space, this wonderful place we have to gather, to feel safe in the Dharma, to feel that we can too receive the courage to face the challenges that come up in our lives. These last couple of years haven't been that easy, right? Think about things have changed a lot since the last time I was here to speak, right? But here we are. We're gathered here. Some of us are here in person, some are joining us on Zoom. We continue to have this connection to carry forward the wish of these loved ones that we remember for the Stockton Eitaikyo, but also the bishops, the past bishops of the Buddhist churches of America who've guided our Sangha through difficult times. And so I'm very grateful to all of you for this opportunity to come together and to hear these precious teachings of the Buddha. So I'll conclude my talk for the Dharma School at this time. Please join me in dash. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo.
Thank you, Reverend Adams. Next time I get angry, I'm gonna remember that mask getting stuck on the face. So now we're going to have installation of officers for our youth organizations. We are missing Sangha Club today, so we will catch them at our Bodhi Day service when we do the installation for all the temple organizations, the adult organizations. And YAO, at this point, the youth athletic organization has not selected a cabinet, so today we will be doing our Young Buddhist Association and our Dharma School. So if you're the first one up, we'll start with the president or superintendent. Please come up, receive the candle from Reverend, light it, and then pass it to all your fellow cabinet members. And the last person up, please place it in the candelabra. So we're going to start with the Young Buddhist Association. We have co-presidents, Elise Fuji and Casey Hamamoto. Recording secretary is Maren Uemura. Corresponding secretaries is Lalai Fuji and Emily Fujiwara. Oh, Marissa Yu and William Black. Treasurer is Alex Kawaguchi. Co-activities chairpersons are Jimmy Dutton, George Fuji, Emily Wong, and Renee Ishihara. And our religious chairperson is Andrew Kawaguchi, who's not here today. Go ahead and put it up on. Thank you. Perfect. For the Dharma School, we have Superintendent Mike Shibata. The Assistant Superintendent is myself. Recording Secretary Ruby Kato. Corresponding Secretary Peggy Martin. Treasurer Tad Shibata. Historian Kathy Fujimori. Service Chairperson Charles Bagshaw. Attendance Chairperson Candy Hayashi. Publicity Chairperson Tiffany Shibata. And Music Chairperson Carrie Wong.
Please join me in English. And repeat after me. I take office. In. Aware that I will require. A commitment of time and effort. I will do my best to lead. Through both action and direction. Using the Buddha Dharma as my guide. I affirm this pledge. By taking refuge in the three treasures. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo. Thank you so much and congratulations, and please turn around and if we can give our wonderful volunteers and the cabinet a round of applause.
Friend. Come on, Gary.
Do you want our masks off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody hold your breath, take their mask off. Deeper.
Thank you.
Okay, please stand for Gatha Jinshu Shuka. It's on in your service book, page 217. And I know the program says it's included, but it's not. So please stand, and we're going to be doing verses 1 and 2. Followed by our pledge.
Our pledge. Breaking out of my shell, I will share a warm smile and speak gentle words, just like the kind Buddha. Not becoming lost in my greed, anger, and ignorance, I shall think and act with an open mind, just like the calm and peaceful Buddha. Not putting myself first, I will share in the joy and sadness of others, just like the compassionate Buddha. Realizing the gift of life I have received, I shall strive to live each day to its fullest, like the Buddha who tirelessly works to liberate all. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu.
Announcements. Okay, fall chicken teriyaki will be on October 23rd. Please support this important fundraiser by selling your tickets. All orders and money need to be turned into the office by October 17th, 2022. Time is getting short, so please sell as many tickets as possible, and if you can, we still need volunteers to help out on that day. There will be no service on October 16th due to the FEWA conference. That is next week. On October 30th is Bring Your Friend to Church Day, and after service is our annual Halloween party for our students. Sangha Club is continuing collection of aluminum cans and recyclable plastics. Donations may be left by the white bin under the carport. Please help recycle bottles and cans out of our keep the bottles and cans out of the landfills while supporting one of our youth organizations. Are there any more announcements? If not, students through grade 6 are dismissed to class. Please observe good etiquette while leaving and offer incense if you haven't already.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Okay, so hello again. It's my honor to fully introduce you to Reverend Henry Adams. I'm very fortunate to work with him on the Federation of Dharma School Teachers Buddhist Education Committee as he is our ministerial advisor. So Reverend Henry Adams grew up in Buffalo, Minnesota. When I hear Minnesota, I automatically think snow. Well, today, I looked it up. Today it is a mild 63 degrees, but tonight it will dip to 37 degrees. No snow, but colder than my liking. So his travels are very interesting. He discovered his interest in Buddhism during a one-year high school exchange program in Chennai, India. As an undergraduate student at St. Olaf College, he began his study of Buddhist scriptures and first considered pursuing the path to ministry. After receiving his MA in Buddhist Studies from the University of Michigan, he moved to Miyazaki, Japan, where he worked for the Miyazaki prefectural government. In 2007, Reverend Adams moved to Kyoto, Japan, to pursue his ministerial studies at Chuo Fukyo Gakuin Buddhist Seminary. Upon graduating, he began serving as a minister with the Buddhist Churches of America in 2010. From 2010 to 2013, he served as the resident minister of the Oxnard Buddhist Temple, which you all saw. We did a little video on Oxnard, and supervised the Buddhist Church of Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo Buddhist Temple, and the Guadalupe Buddhist Church. Since 2013, he began his resident ministry at the San Mateo Buddhist Church, where my cousin is his organist. And since 2020, he has supervised also the Buddhist Church of San Francisco. From September 2018 to May 2019, he also served as chaplain intern for the UCSF Med Center. Today is San Mateo's monthly Dharma school activity, so we are missing his mother, his wife Shoko, and their 3 sons, Yoma, who's 11, Shoma, who's 8, and Tokuma, who's 3. Perhaps seeking a bit warmer environment, his parents are currently visiting from Minnesota, and we are very fortunate to be able to meet his father, Bob Adams. So if we can give him a welcome. Hopefully you'll get to speak to both of them after the service. So now please lend your attention for our Dharma message by Reverend Henry Adams.
Namam Davus, Namam Davus, Namam Davus, Namam Davus, Namam Davus, Namam Davus. Please join me in Gasho. Let us hear the words of the larger sutra on the Buddha of immeasurable light. The Buddha said, "Now I have expounded this sutra for all sentient beings and have enabled you to see the Buddha of immeasurable light in everything in his land. If you have questions about what to do, you should ask me now so that you may not give rise to further doubt after I have entered nirvana. In the future, all the sutras will become extinct. However, out of compassion and pity, I will ensure that this sutra alone remains for a further 100 years. Those sentient beings who encounter this sutra will attain emancipation in accordance with their aspiration." Namam Bhavas, Namam Bhavas, Namam Bhavas, Namam Bhavas. Once again, I thank you for the honor of joining me this morning for your Eitaikyo service. The meaning of Eitaikyo, I mean, it's a word that we often use when we talk about our temple activities, but the meaning is a service that continues, it's perpetual chanting of the sutras. And it expresses this idea that the temple will be a place where the sutras will continue to be carried on in perpetuity. So from now, forever is our aspiration, our wish that this temple will continue to be a place where we can gather to hear the Dharma. Now we know that we live in this world of impermanence. We've experienced that very clearly over the past couple of years. However, there is one message, one teaching that the Buddha assures us will continue on beyond all the other teachings. This teaching of the larger sutra, which is in essence the teaching of Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. So if you think for yourself, what was the first time you heard Namo Amida Butsu? I recall, my first experience hearing Namo Amida Butsu at a temple in Japan. I was a student at, this was after I was a student, I was working, I was on it's called the JET program. I was working and living in Miyazaki, Japan, and I had never been to a Jodo Shinshu temple. I'd spent a lot of time in Zen temples, which have a little bit different feel. They're a little bit pretty, a little bit more, formal, a little bit more strict about the observance of rules and protocol and things. So I was quite nervous when I came into this temple for the first time, but I've been pedaling back and forth and passing it on the street many times. And when I saw it, I thought, I'd like to go in there sometime. And they had an announcement for a service that they were having there, and so I thought, well, I'll go and see what this is all about. And like a Jodo Shinshu temple, the service included a Dharma talk. And so as I approached the temple, I was very nervous. I tried to kind of, sneak in quietly, not to be noticed. But they have the gravel, the jutty, the gravel was all over outside. And so as I was walking up, it was crunch, 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 crunch of the gravel walking in. And then, it was an older building. And so as I walked up the steps, it was creaking. And I opened the sliding kusuma doors and opened it up and walked in. And there was a gentleman who was sitting at a table, kind of doing the reception there. And it was the sort of entryway. It was around this time of year. I believe it was the autumnal higan, so the weather was starting to cool off. And so they had the doors to the hondo were closed, and they had the heater on. And so when I went in, there was just this one gentleman sitting there, and he took one look at me, and then he got up from his seat, he opened the doors to the hondo, he walked through the doors, and then he closed them, and left me standing there by myself in the entryway, wondering what's going to happen next. And so I waited there very patiently, wondering, should I just leave now or what's going to happen? And then he opened up the door, and a woman who looked to be maybe in her 50s came out very smartly dressed, very confident, and she marched right up to me, and I was certain that she was the enforcer, the one who was going to say, okay, you can go now. But she said to me in perfect practice, impeccable English, "Welcome to Shineji Temple. Please come with me." And I think she'd been waiting for that opportunity for someone to come to the temple and to welcome them in to the hondo. So she welcomed me into the hondo, and she invited me to have a seat. So I had a seat there in the hondo. Next to her, she gave me a very nice seat, right there in the front near the Buddha. And she said, okay, service is going to start. And she pulled out the service book, and she said, okay, here's the service book. And then she opened it up, and it's all in Japanese. Can you read this? And I was like, oh, well, it has the furigana, the little hiragana there. So yeah, I'll be able to manage with that. So, okay, good. Okay, so they're gonna ring a bell. And after they ring a bell, everybody's gonna join their hands like this. They're going to say, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu. And I said, Namman Dabutsu. Yeah, say it like that. That sounds good. Okay. And so we stayed there, and then just as she finished explaining everything, then the bell started to ring, like Reverend Shibata rang a kamsha. The start of the service, and went up to the crescendo, and the ministers were coming out in their beautiful robes, like the robes Reverend Shibata is wearing today, coming out, being seated in the Naijin space, and then as the bell kind of reached its crescendo, the ministers joined their hands in gasho and said, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu. And I heard what everyone was saying. And I repeated, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu. And we all bowed. And as we come up, Mrs. Goto, the woman who welcomed me, and turned to me and said, very good. This is really strange. I've been to a few temples, and I've spent some time at temples, and it's never been very good. It's always been sit up straight, don't slouch, don't sleep, do with the stick, very formal. And here, I had come here for the very first time, and I was getting the impression that my Namo Amidabutsu was just as good as this gentleman sitting next to me, who had, by the looks of him, been saying Namo Amidabutsu for at least 85 years. And somehow my Namo Amidabutsu that I said for the first time was just as powerful, just as efficacious as his Namo Amidabutsu. And so I thought, I really must understand, I have to understand this. So I stayed and listened to the Dharma talk, and listening to the minister, he explained that the power of Namo Amidabutsu is not what I've practiced and learned how to do on my own, but it's the power of the Buddha's compassion working in my life. That my Namo Amidabutsu doesn't come from some goodness in myself, but rather it comes from the wisdom and compassion that I receive from the Buddha. And so it doesn't rely on me being good or smart or talented. It simply relies on me trusting and opening my heart to the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha. So this is a very powerful teaching. It's the teaching that guides and sustains us. And these words, Namo Amida Butsu, this is the teaching of the larger sutra, the teaching that those who built and established this temple wish for us to hear. And it is our wish to be able to share what we have received. So I'd like to share some of my appreciation this morning of what is the power of Namo Amida Butsu, and where do we find it in our own lives, and how has it gotten to this point where we get to hear it this morning, here today, here in Stockton. One of the first stories that we have about the Buddha teaching the Nembutsu comes not from a larger sutra, but a sutra called the Contemplation Sutra. And this is a story about a historical event that occurred at the time of Shakyamuni Buddha. And this is the story of a king named Bimbasara and his family, his wife Vaidehi and his son Ajatasattu. Ajatasattu was their only son, and he fell into the company of the Buddha's cousin. He came to be friends with the Buddha's cousin Devadatta. Now, if you've heard stories about Devadatta, immediately when Devadatta appears in a story, a Buddhist story, it's like Wile E. Coyote appearing in a Roadrunner cartoon. He's always up to some kind of mischief, and he's always plotting, how can I take over the Sangha? He's one of these people who's constantly seeking his own power, seeking his own benefit, right? And so he's always thinking about, he's jealous of the Buddha, and he's wondering, how can I get what the Buddha has? The Buddha has respect. The Buddha has reverence, love. People care for the Buddha. People support the Buddha. I want to have that for myself. And so he's plotting, how can I get what the Buddha has? And he doesn't understand the true treasure that the Buddha carries, the treasure of the truth. He thinks about all the kind of superficial things. And so on one occasion, Devadatta approaches Ajatasattu and says, your father is the king, and you are the prince. So who's going to run the kingdom when your father is gone? And Ajatasattu says, well, of course, it will be me. I'm the heir to the throne. He says, when you become king, you can support me the way that your father supports the Buddha. And then won't that be great? You'll rule the world. You'll rule the world in terms of politics and government. I'll rule the world spiritually. We'll make a great team. Doesn't that sound good? Ajatasattu said, yeah, that sounds good. He said, I wonder how we could make that happen a little more quickly. What if your father, say, went to jail with no food, no water? Then you get to be king really soon. Oh, and by the way, why is your finger kind of crooked? Oh, I don't know, it's always been that way. Oh, really? Because I heard a story that when you were a baby, your parents threw you off the highest tower of the palace. No, they would never do a thing like that. So they did. Here, I have somebody who's there. Here, come here, tell them the story. He's like, oh yeah, actually your parents did throw you off the high tower that one time, and they felt really bad about it, and they cared for you and loved you ever since. And then Ajatasattu said, oh, his heart became filled with anger. And he said, I will have my revenge on my parents. And so he threw his father in jail, and he denied him all food and all beverages, no water, nothing. And of course, the person can't live for long like that. But King Bimbasara had his loyal and loving wife, Vaidehi. And Vaidehi was also very intelligent and very wise. And she said, well, they won't let me bring a plate of food, and they won't let me bring a bottle of water, but they can't stop me from entering the palace dressed and adorned as a queen should always be addressed, with lots of thick makeup and lots of beautiful jewelry. And so she cleansed herself, she washed her face, and then she piled on thick makeup made of flour and butter. And she filled her many beautiful earrings and necklaces and jewelry, had little cups, and she filled those with sweet nectar. And she brought them in. And the guards, they couldn't stop her. And so she went in and she provided this nourishment to the king. And then the king himself receiving this nourishment, he asked the Buddha, please send me your disciple, send me Mahamudgalyayana to come and teach the Dharma. Mahamudgalyayana had tremendous powers as an enlightened disciple. He could appear any place that he wished to teach the Dharma. And so the Buddha indeed sent Mahamudgalyayana to provide teachings for the king. And so the king was at peace in his heart, he was nourished in his body, and he continued like this indefinitely until one day Ajatasattu asked, what has become of my father? Thinking that surely his father had passed away and it was time to start planning a funeral and to start planning his own coronation. But his guard said, you know, your mom, the queen, she can go anywhere in the palace, we can't stop her. And she visits your father every day. And she brings him food and beverages in her makeup and in her jewelry. And the Buddha, he sends his disciples and they can pass through walls. And so there's nothing that we can do to stop them. And hearing this, the Ajatasattu then flew into a rage and he pulled out his sword and was about to cut down his own mother when his two close advisors, the advisors who they've been advisors to the king, and they continued to help to try to run the country, realizing that, well, the country needs to continue. And they stopped him and they said, wait. Now, up until this point, we've continued to serve you because it's nothing new for a son to wish to take over the throne and to kill his father. This happens. This has happened many times in the past. And we wish for our contemporary to continue. And so we've continued to serve you. But if you were to kill your own mother, if you were to strike your own mother with your sword, we would have to quit and leave. And good luck running this country on your own, because we could not serve someone who has sunk to this terrible death. And so hearing this, then Ajatasattu, he sort of pauses, he stops, and he puts down his sword, but he throws his mother in jail. And as his mother is there in prison, she's weeping and she's miserable, and she calls to the Buddha. She says, please send Ananda, your disciple who has taught me the teachings in the past, send him to come and comfort me and to provide me with the Dharma teachings. And she bowed her head down in the direction of the Buddha. And when she raised her head up, the Buddha himself had appeared there before her. And she asked the Buddha, says, how can the world be so terrible? I long to live in a world that's free of greed, anger, and ignorance. And how could Devadatta be your cousin? How could we live in this world of these difficult, complicated, terrible relationships and all this suffering? She said, I long for a world of peace and bliss. And then the Buddha showed her, using his amazing powers, he showed her all of the different worlds of enlightenment, worlds free from greed, anger, and ignorance. And she said to him, I long to see the world of the Buddha of immeasurable light, Amida Buddha. And so Shakyamuni Buddha then in that moment shared with her this Pure Land teaching, the teaching of Namo Amida Buddha. And he said, I will share this teaching with you so that those who in the future should wish to receive the comfort and the strength of the Nembutsu, and those who wish to be guided to a world free from suffering will be able to be sustained and guided by this teaching. And so he taught to her the practice of saying Namo Amida Buddha. And he said, for those whose hearts are filled with wickedness, for those who have made bad mistakes, and surely she reflected upon her own life and the way that she had treated her child when he was young and defenseless. And she took refuge in this Nembutsu teaching. And then she carried this with her. And as time passed, the king did eventually pass away because the person who had been bringing him food and beverages now was locked up in jail. And then after the king died, Ajatasattu became so filled with remorse that it said that boils and blisters burst out all over his body. And who was there to comfort him but his mother? She cared for him, comforted him, and tried to nurse him back to health. Even though he had murdered her husband and thrown her in jail, she had received this Nembutsu teaching, and she realized the power of the Buddha's teaching to transform hearts and minds. And so she continued to be this example of the power of the Buddha Dharma. And Ajatasattu himself then went eventually to hear the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, welcomed him and shared with him this teaching of wisdom and compassion. So this powerful teaching, this story of the Buddha's life, this has been carried down throughout the generations. This is one of the true teachings that has been passed down in perpetuity. In the 11th and 12th century Japan, there was a teacher by the name of Benyo Shoni. In the early 13th century, he was teaching about this Nembutsu teaching. His portrait hangs. So Benyo Shoni, who I spoke about earlier, is just to the left of the Buddha. Then the next scroll over, you'll see it has 7 small portraits. There's a dark one that's that probably from where you're seeing, it just looks like a kind of a black dot. But that's a portrait of Benyo Shoni wearing the black robes of a Japanese monk, or rather a Honen Shoni. And Honen Shoni taught this teaching that everyone is embraced by Amida Buddha, that the power of the Nembutsu is not from our own goodness, but from the compassion we receive from the Buddha. And he taught that something very kind of revolutionary. He was inspired by the Contemplation Sutra and the story of Queen Vaidehi. He taught that men and women are equally able to attain enlightenment. This is something that was not widely taught at that time. At that time, in Honen Shoni's time, it was generally taught that the best thing for the path to enlightenment was to be born as a man. And Benyo said, no, the human life, hard is it to be born into human life, men and women. There's a path for men and women to attain enlightenment. And this is the path of the Nembutsu. Now, on one occasion, two of Benyo's Honen Shoni's disciples were chanting. They were chanting the Pure Land teachings, and 2 of the emperor at the time, 2 of his favorite girlfriends, happened to be walking by and they heard this beautiful chanting. And the emperor happened to be out of town visiting another shrine in another part of Japan. When they heard this beautiful chanting, they were drawn in and they said, "What is the meaning of these words you are chanting?" And Honen Shoni's disciples shared with them, this is a teaching where all beings are able to attain enlightenment through receiving the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha in these words, Namo Amida Butsu. He said, when you say all beings, does that include women? They said, yes, men and women. They were so moved and inspired. Their names were Suzumushi and Matsumushi. They were so moved and inspired that they, at that moment, asked to be welcomed into the Sangha. And they left the life of the imperial court and they became nuns in the community of Honen Shonin's followers. And so they would gather and they would listen to the teachings of Honen Shonin. And when the emperor returned from his trip, the first thing he did was ask for them. He says, bring in Suzumushi and Matsumushi because they're beautiful singers. And I want to hear the sound, their beautiful voices. And he was very disappointed to learn that they had gone out one day and never returned. He said, well, what happened to them? Right? And they very quickly found out that they had joined the Sangha of Honen Shonin. And when the emperor heard about this, he became so enraged that he ordered that the 2 disciples who had given ordination to Suzumushi and Matsumushi, that they be executed. And that Honen Shonin, Shinran Shonin, and several of Honen's leading disciples were to be sent into exile, scattered all over to the far reaches of Japan. They'd all been living in Kyoto, the capital city, and they were sent out into the countryside with the idea that, oh, this will put an end to this teaching. We'll get these people out of the city, and then this teaching will just kind of dissipate. So can you imagine how Honen Shonin's community must have felt? So much anger, so much frustration, so much sadness, so many feelings of injustice. But Honen Shonin's response was very interesting. because he was one who lived deeply in the Nembutsu, who reflected upon these teachings of the Buddha, the power of the Buddha's compassion to transform lives. And he said something very interesting. I want to read for you Honen's parting words to his disciples. He was very elderly at this point. He was in his late 70s, right? So at this point, in our days, late 70s is sort of vim and vigor, but in those days, think about this. That was extremely elderly. Average lifespan was maybe 30 at that time. So he was an elderly Dharma teacher who was being sent into exile, a difficult journey ahead of him. His disciples were distraught because they knew we may never meet him again. And these are the words that he said. He said, "Do not resent my being sent into exile, for I am approaching 80 years of age. Even if we were living together as teacher and students in the capital, my departure from this Saha world is drawing near. Even if we are separated by mountains and oceans, do not doubt that we will meet again in the Pure Land. Though we may reject this world, our human existence carries on. Though we may cling to life, our death will come. Why insist on being in a certain place? What's more, while I have spent all these years sharing the Nembutsu teaching here in the capital, it has been my heartfelt wish to go into the outlying regions and share the teachings with the farmers who work the fields. However, a time had not come when I was able to fulfill that wish. That I am now able to pursue this long-held wish is thanks to the great benevolence of the Emperor. Though people may try to prevent the spread of this Dharma, the Dharma cannot be impeded. The vow of the Buddhas to liberate sentient beings is deep, and the commitment on the part of the various deities who protect the Dharma is sincere. Why would we allow ourselves to be influenced by worldly disdain and conceal the true meaning of the sutras and commentaries? However, it pains me to think that my propagating the Pure Land Dharma gate, which is the essential path to certain liberation for all beings in this defiled age of decline, will have created a circumstance in which the deities who constantly protect the Dharma will blame those who have brutally suppressed the teachings. We should bear in mind that as long as we are alive, the working of cause and effect will continue unabated. If the causes and conditions for our karmic connection with one another are not yet exhausted, who is to say that we will not meet again in this lifetime? So this is really remarkable. Honen Shoni is here being sent out into exile, right? His life is at risk from this. He's an elderly man. And yet, what are his feelings toward the emperor? They're feelings of gratitude. You've given me this opportunity to go out and share this teaching. And surely, Honen Shoni went and taught throughout and continued to teach the Dharma, but particularly Honen Shinran Shoni, the founder of our Jodo Shinshu tradition. He was also sent into exile, and it was with Shinran Shonin's exile that he began to really flourish as a teacher. And so, far from dying out, the Nembutsu teaching then flourished in the Hokuriku area, that region along the Sea of Japan, where I talked earlier about Benyo Shonin, where he wound up settling. And then Shinran Shonin ultimately travels to the Kanto area, where the new capital is being built. And the Nembutsu flourishes there. So just as the new capital in Kamakura is building up, the Nembutsu teaching is flourishing. All of this thanks to the emperor. And Honen Shonin had the insight and the foresight to see that the working of causes and conditions that support our lives, we can't understand what's happening. And so the Nembutsu teaching can give us the strength and the courage to face the at times inconceivable and incomprehensible challenges that arise in our lives. And then his final feeling is a sense of compassion. Compassion for those who are bringing about their suffering. Is like these people that have this anger and aggression toward us, and that feeling is only going to bring harm for them. And so he has this deep heart of compassion and gratitude, and he models this, and he inspires Shinran Shonin, who then passes this teaching on, and it continues to grow and spread down through the centuries into our present day. We think about the Issei pioneers, the Nisei, the Sansei leaders who built and sustained this temple down through the generations. They faced tremendous challenges and discrimination and suffering, and continued to support the Dharma, continued their commitment to this Nembutsu teaching. And all of us too, we've lived through these last 3 years of the pandemic time completely separated, right? I know there were times for me when I was like, are we ever gonna get back to the temple? Right? In my heart, but Honen Shonin, he tells us, if the causes and conditions for our karmic connection with one another are not yet exhausted, who is to say we will not meet again in this lifetime? And here we are in the Hondo, meeting again. It's so wonderful to be here with you today as we remember these loved ones who have crossed over to the other shore for the Eitaikyo service, as we show our gratitude to the bishops of the Buddhist Churches of America who guided our Sangha through all these years, and we're able to enjoy this time and to reaffirm our own commitment that this Nembutsu Dharma be heard in perpetuity here in Stockton, California. So we'll conclude at this time. Please join me in fashion. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida. Namo. Namo.
Thank you, Reverend Adams, for that wonderful Dharma message. We'll be shortly ending the live stream, so those of you that have joined us on Zoom, thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you back in the temple sometime soon. Are there any other announcements? So at this time, we invite you all to offer incense and maybe have a little chat with Reverend Adams. Thank you.